So, you just never know. You just got to keep all these little variables that you learn as you move forward and you start to do your business more and more. You're going to make mistakes and it's going to suck because you'll be like, damn, I could have saved myself 50 bucks or
Yeah.
$100, or in our case, probably a couple $100.
Right.
Knowing that there are certain things that can be changed and you just won't know. You won't know.
Welcome to the Charcuterie and Cottage Biz podcast, the show for makers, bakers, and food creators ready to turn their kitchen skills into real income without all the overwhelm. We're your hosts, Andrea and Patty, the Grazing Biz sisters, a professionally trained chef and a multi-million-dollar marketing strategist with over 60 years combined experience helping entrepreneurs start, price, market, and grow profitable food businesses. Whether it's a side hustle or full-time dream, you're in the right place. Now, let's start the show. Hey, 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 hey. Hey, 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 we're back. Hey, hey, how's
Yeah, I don't know
everybody?
how long have we not been in front of the cameras is what I was just wondering. It's been a while. I don't even remember
Oh,
the
oh
last
yeah,
time.
because I have a new laptop and we had issues and
Oh,
hopefully we
that's
won't
right.
freeze. So yeah, my computer could not save stuff. So anyway, we're back on video. I hope if you see this, it's back on video and you can check us out back on YouTube. But anyway, yeah, we are on YouTube. We're here. Anyway, welcome back, everybody. We had an amazing, fun weekend. We're tired, but we're here to tell our story, and that's what we're gonna do today. How you doing, sister? Back up in Northern
I'm
AZ?
better
Yeah.
today. We're recording this on a Wednesday and we had the wedding that we're going to talk about on Saturday, and for some reason we're exhausted. Um I just,
Well,
I
partly
mean,
because a wedding's a wedding, but
yeah,
yeah.
a wedding's a wedding. I mean, I didn't party as hard as you did, so I can say that. I didn't.
Yeah,
I did.
I'll tell you,
She was
crazy.
the mother of the groom, the stepmother of the groom, so it was just crazy weekend.
Yeah,
But
it was. So it started out on it started out on Friday, and then we went down to a big party they had. And then my husband had a little bit too much, and we drove two separate cars because yours truly had to get back home to her sister here on the other side of the screen to help her cut more cheese up and stuff for the grazing table that we were doing on Saturday. Anyway, so hubby and I drove separately, but hubby ended up having to take an Uber home and from an hour and a half away because he could not drive. And the man had a long wedding the next. Well, he had a long wedding the next day. Not me.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like you got
Anyway,
to pace yourself, dude.
God bless him. Yeah, I know,
I
I know.
know.
He comes home, and so in the morning I said, "So what?" This was Saturday morning of the day of the wedding, and he's rolling out of bed awfully slow. I go, "What time did you get home?" He goes, "I don't know." He didn't even know. Oh God, because I was asleep. I was glad he made it home. What a terrible wife though, because I could see it kind of coming, and I'm like, I gotta go. So I'm standing in the driveway talking to my son and his wife, and I was out there a good 15, 20 minutes, and I really should have gone back in and grabbed him. But and anyway, weekend goes by and the car sitting out in the neighborhood of this party
Oh,
that
yeah,
was
did you go pick that
not
up?
yeah, but oh, that was a whole nother thing. For another for another webinar or podcast. But anyway, so yeah, so basically, if you listen to our podcast number 38, we Andrew and I were sitting at my kitchen table that week or so ago, having a chat about the upcoming wedding of my stepson, where we had planned to build a massive grazing table for 170 attendees. So we chatted about prepping for that and going shopping because I needed to go shopping. So I'm going to start the story on Wednesday, last week. And one thing about it, and it's something I didn't really think about so much, but like I went shopping on Wednesday, because I had to work, I had other stuff going on here in the morning. I didn't leave the house until 12:30. My goal was to get home by like 2:30 or 3 or whatever it was. And I actually did that, but I had planned to go to a few other stores. And by the time I got done at Costco, I was so fried. I went in, I started out with a cart, and within about 10 minutes, I'm like, what am I doing with this cart? I need a pallet. And I swiped one that was in the aisleway of anyway,
Yeah.
and I moved everything onto it and just totally piled this thing up. But so it started there, and I've got my list here. I'll show it to you, everybody. So I have my list. Um, of everything that I needed to get. And I did not actually write down the amounts of so from if you listen to the recording from the previous episode, Andrew and I were chatting about the amount of ounces that you would get for cheeses and meats and things like that. Why don't we rehash what you talked about just for those who might not have heard that, Andrew? So we knew we had 170 people coming. Your advice
Right.
to me was for meats and cheeses to get,
Right. So when you look at the back of any product, and I'm just going to keep going back to brie in this case because brie is just, at
Costco.
Costco. Everybody probably uses it. If you don't, you should.
Yeah,
Number one, it's delicious. And number two, it's an excellent price for the size that you get. The trick to that one is cutting it up.
cutting it.
But and maybe I'll do a video and put it on my TikTok at some point so that people can see it. But so it will tell you how much is the suggested serving size, which is usually about an ounce or something like that. So you've got 170 people, that a serving size is an ounce, and it will also tell you how many people it will serve. Now I'm having trouble finding it online, so I can't look at the back of it. But it will tell you how many will serve from that one wheel of brie. And from that, you would say to yourself, well, I'm only going to serve a half an ounce or count a half an ounce because they're going to have a multitude of other plethora of other things to choose from. So you're factoring in your head, I'm only going to do a half an ounce, which serves however many people from that wheel. So I hope that makes sense. I know that I repeated that in the last recording, but that's kind of where you want to get started. Now, one of the things Patty and I were just talking about too is the fact that that is something that I use to determine how much I'm going to make. The other thing I use is experience. So
Yes.
if you've done this, you're gonna make mistakes. I wish the world was perfect. I wish that I could tell you exactly what you need to order and exactly how many, how you need to set it up and everything, but everybody has their own thing. And the only way you're ever going to find it out is to stumble and
Yeah.
fall and either serve too much or too little. And I feel like I don't want to throw everybody to the winds. I do the best I can, but one of the things that can be your guide is the label. It will tell you how much, and then you just kind of have to figure it out from that point how much you need
Right.
to order. That's how I've done it. That's how I've always done it. I've been doing catering and banquets for, oh my god, 30, almost 30 years. That's frightening. um Primarily that's what I've done my most of my career. I ran restaurants and stuff too, but I had other chefs below me that took care of a lot of that stuff. But when it comes down to that, read the labels, figure it out, and stumble and fall. And eventually you'll know your crowds and you'll know how much to serve. I have always said that brie and cheddar and hard Swiss cheese or Gouda or whatever are the mainstays of the table.
Right. And that
Did that
that had a
answer the
lot to,
question?
well, I think so, kind of, because where I was trying to like where I was really challenged because I go to the store. Now Andrea wasn't with me because she was up north and she was planning to come down on Friday afternoon. And to get back to that, what I was originally going to say was that you don't realize when you're shop. Okay, so I'm shopping, yay! Now Thursday was kind of a dead day, to be quite honest with you, because I couldn't really do anything to prep
Hmm.
necessarily. I did a few. I cut up. I asked you Thursday afternoon. I did start cutting up the hard cheddar cheese. Because I
Hmm.
felt like that was probably going to be fine until Saturday, but the other stuff I didn't want drying out. So I had kind of what I felt like a dead day, despite the fact that, I could have maybe been doing something, but
Could
because
just
we
be
want
a
to make sure
planning day. Hmm.
a planning day, we want to make sure that I kind of planned, and I did. I built the boxes, which we'll talk about here in a minute. So I did things that weren't going to rot or, have things go bad on me, ideally. But even to get back to the shopping, because it was so key to making sure that you're not overbuying or not buying enough. And just exactly what you said until we got there on Saturday, how much we had. and how we were going to plan it. So the shopping part of this is I just so important. And ideally, I went in there with a list of the things that I knew I needed to get from Costco. You suggested that I just do all the shopping at Costco because I know you don't, and I'm the same way. I don't want to be driving all over town. And if I'm pretty sure I know what the prices are and what they have there, and that in the end it's going to end up being probably the most affordable, assuming you're not buying too much because you're having a little party. So it's really dependent on obviously the size of the party. But you also need to consider what do you when you're buying and all the stuff is like, what else is the venue in a case like this going to provide? And so that's when we got really tricked up on Saturday because we knew that they were going to put out something, but we didn't know how much of and what. And that was partly, I didn't find out until Friday because I went to the rehearsal and talked to the people there. But they still, all they did was show me a little picture of a screenshot of something. Oh, this is what the trays look like. And they put out 4 different items on trays and they kept refilling. But I don't know how much they refilled. I wasn't really babysitting that, but it
Mm-mm.
wasn't a lot. But at the same time, you have to consider you're going to have other stuff there too. So how much do you really need to buy? So my question to you, Andrea, was, and is still like, okay, you're right. I picked up maybe what did I pick up? 5 or 6 different cheeses. And not everyone's gonna like Swiss. Not everyone's gonna like Gouda. I'm not a Gouda fan at all. I stayed away from it. I don't like Gouda personally, but so you don't know what everyone's going to eat at your event. I think, how do you determine then how much brie to buy, knowing that brie and cheddar is the most popular, but people are going to want some Gouda? How much Gouda do you buy based on knowing how much brie you're buying? And not everyone's going to eat it. And we know not everyone's going to eat it. Even though you and I like brie, some people aren't going to eat brie because they don't like it either. Some people think it
Mm-hmm.
tastes like cardboard.
Mm-hmm.
So but the point is that if the standard amounts of a serving is 1 or 1.5 ounces, for if that was the only thing on your plate, then yeah, that makes sense, I would guess, right? Other than
Mm-hmm.
but if you're going to be serving other types of cheeses that people could consider, as opposed to, oh, I don't have to eat brie because I don't like it that much anyway, I'm going to go scoop in on the Gouda instead.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you say ideally a half an ounce just to play it safe. So if you had 100 people there, you would buy 50 ounces. Is that because you're going to go for
Right.
a brie, right?
Right. Right.
When you're doing a grazing table type thing like that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what I realized too was what happens is there's a bit of overwhelm when you're doing a grazing table because it's like going to, remember Toys R Us for all the old people. You go in and there's so many toys. I used to like just go into, and I talked about this before, I like to just go to Walmart because there's less toys there to choose from. When the kids were little, I would go into Toys R Us and the selection was just too huge. I would get overwhelmed. But I think that's the same thing at a grazing table when people walk
Yeah.
up, what am I going to
Mm-hmm.
eat and what's all on here? And, it's kind of like
Right.
squirrel. There was so much going on. So,
There was, yeah. And I think that is a really good analogy right there because the reality is people are going to eat whatever you put in front of them. They're not paying for it for the most part.
yeah.
So, the host is paying for it. So as long as you have whatever the host is wanting you to have, in this case, it was a free for all. We could do whatever we wanted. But you definitely want to like narrow it down and keep it simple because people, you're right. They think they get overwhelmed or else they go back and take things that they're not going to eat or whatever because they don't know what it is. And I
Mhm.
mean there's a bazillion scenarios and variables that we can throw at this and there's no real right way. I do see online people that do now if people have seen our grazing table from last weekend,
They will,
you
because
can
I'm going
see
to put a
that
picture in here. Yeah.
okay. It is quite extensive, but if you really look close, there's not that much different from one side. The two sides are almost exactly the same in context, but they look different. And because I did them, some of the boards I did a little bit different than others, and we'll talk about how we did that. But the reality is there really wasn't that much of a choice. It's the way we put it out
Yeah.
that made the difference and made it look like, oh my God, look at, like, then that's a whole nother story in itself that we haven't even talked about, is the fact that we were setting up while people were arriving, and they were eating off the table while we're trying. I'm putting food down, like, get out of here.
I know.
It all the stuff happened in the same room. So that was, and then of course they were people we knew. So da 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 da. We were getting behind, and but the point is, there really wasn't a lot of choices on the table. It just looked like there was,
Hmm.
and that is the key to any grazing table. If you're doing it right, you just take the same items and you kind of change them up a little bit and make them look fun and cool, and all of a sudden everybody's impressed. And that's the whole idea behind a grazing table.
Hmm.
It's not always about having the multitudes of choices of food, because that's like going to a buffet. You go to the fancy buffets, like the ones we used to do at the Phoenician. I didn't even know which way to go. Like,
Oh,
where do
I
I
loved
start?
those though. Oh my
I
gosh,
love
they were
those
so good.
too,
They were so good.
and you pay $75 to be there, but you
Yeah.
probably only eat $10 worth of food because you're just overwhelmed and don't even know what to do with yourself.
Yeah.
So I know I always hit up the seafood tables, but
Right. Well, let me go
point
through
being,
just
you could see, if you look at our table, you will see that it's not, it's just the way we set it up versus
right.
the amount of food,
Right. Well, let
or
me go
choices
through.
of food, I should say.
Turns out that I happen to have my Costco receipt here, and I'm going to just go down the list of the stuff that I did buy that ended up on the table. And I will tell you, one of the most popular things was the very first thing that I guess apparently got rung up at Costco, and that was the strawberry, the yogurt strawberry
Oh
pretzel
yeah.
coated. People love those. And I want to say, oh, I was gonna say, I paid $8.99 for a bag of those. I bought 2 bags of those, but anyway, so those were popular because just to have this stuff. And then we're gonna go through and explain to you how it was we set this up ahead of time so that we could do this as fast as possible. But anyway, I did the mixed nuts. I did a bag of cashews. I did 2 bags of apricot, 1 bag of apricots because I already had one in here that I was using, a bag of pistachios, which frankly I absolutely love on a grazing table. Pistachios, crackers, obviously, I bought a variety, and I bought some of I bought the bag of the nutted gluten-free ones too, because you never know, people have gluten-free there. Baguettes. I bought 4 bags of the baguettes that I sliced up in a little 1/4 inches, and I threw them in the freezer on Wednesday when I got home. And then in the morning or in the evening on the Friday night, I guess I cut those suckers up into little things so that they had baguettes. Um, I had sharp cheddar. I bought 2 things of strawberries only because I really didn't want to be honest with you, because in Arizona, we just don't have good fruit here, flat out. I don't care where they're getting it from, but it's just terrible this time of year. And strawberries they almost never are any good where we're at. Same thing with tomatoes, frankly. But I did
Mhm.
buy a bunch of the tomato medleys, which I tend to always overbuy those, and definitely didn't use all those. But partly because they also provided a tomato type bruschetta that they were doing. So I was kind of staying away from putting too much of that. We bought the cheese tray too, which I bought 2 of those cheese trays that you can get at Costco, and people that have been there know what I'm talking about. There's 4 different cheeses on it, already sliced into little like rectangles.
Mhm.
So we were able
Mhm.
to take those and they were already cut up, and because we had the variety, I bought a few of those trays. Um, I bought a goat cheese log, which frankly I bought 3 of those, which ended up being 6 because there were 2 logs in each one, and that was too much. We just didn't use them all, and I just tried to Google freezing the goat log, and I can, so it'll be just dried out a little more when I open it up. I did buy some garlic dip. Nobody touched it. I noticed. And then all that brie, which Andrea will tell you I overbought. Were those 1 pound things of brie? Is that how big they were?
I can't remember,
I
but
think
no, they're
they're
more than one
12
pound. They're like,
ounce. No, they're
they're
not. They're
more
not
than
more.
that.
They're not more than 1 pound, but they might have been 12 ounces. Anyway, anybody who's ever bought those over there, you know how big they are. The 8 ounces I bought over at Walmart previously, and I think those sizes of those were better, but I think you get more brie out of the ones out of Costco.
Hmm.
We
Yeah,
bought
when you have
sliced,
big parties.
yeah, we bought pre-sliced the organic turkey in the refrigerator section that was pre-sliced, and I actually was very happy with that, as well as the same thing, and it was the Kirkland brand, I think it was, for the sliced turkey and the ham. And I was very actually happy with both of those. I bought two container or two things of Borson, which we only used one of. Um, Gouda, too much Gouda too. I bought 3 things of Gouda,
Hmm.
which is really weird. I'm just looking at this. I got charged more for one of those three, and they were all identical. Oh, maybe because it was by weight. Oh, that's why it
Yeah,
was by
they are
weight.
by weight. They
They're by
are by
weight.
weight, and that can be a little.
Right. And those are wedges. Those are pretty good sized wedges. And Andrew will explain what she did to cut those up. Manchego, same thing, big wedges with the wax on them. I bought some watermelon. I bought some of the English cucumbers, 2 packs of those. I bought 2 pineapples. Figs, 2 packets of figs. One ended up in the trash because when we opened up the one, but those were a big hit too. We had to throw one whole pack in the fridge, and they were in the refrigerator section in the big room where all the refrigerator stuff was. Red grapes, green grapes, which by the way, green right, you really got to check. Costco's grapes this time were not good, but I bought them anyway.
Yeah,
Um,
you never know. It's a crapshoot.
yeah, antipasto, tapas, those were all the sausages. The spirella mini sausage with around the cheese. We bought some of those, some olives, mixed peppers, that was for color. And I also stuffed some with some of the um cheese, the soft cheese. Trail mix, arugula, a few other little things. But for the most part, and then the celery. I bought the celery hearts and carrots there.
Hmm.
So when you look at the picture in the video, which we will lay into this video here, so what we did, which Andrew and I chatted about, was I had cake boxes that I'd been, because I kept seeing people do this, and given the fact that I was in the wedding to some extent, I was concerned about my ability to to be there to help as much as we could while we were setting up. So the day before, we basically built the table inside. How many boxes did we end up using? Was it eight? There were
I
eight
used every
half.
box you had. So how
Oh,
many
12
boxes
then.
were there?
There
Yeah,
were
I
12.
used all 12. We didn't put all 12 on the
No, we
table. You
didn't.
said how many were
I
left
had
over?
4 left. Yeah.
4? Yeah.
Hmm.
So, because I did 8. No, I did 5 on one side. Okay. Anyways, but I did, so each box had a cheese, or it had a cheese tray or whatever you want to call it, and then a mix of
Some
cheeses,
meat.
and then another one would be all meat, as opposed to like mixing them up and
Well, you
whatever.
did mix
some
up some
some of
though.
them
There were.
no, I never did. I didn't do any, but you did 2 of them that were mixed,
Hmm.
and so we had 2 in there that were mixed, and then the rest of them were separated, because I wanted to make sure we had a double-sided buffet or a grazing table. So I want to make sure that that each side got the same
Right.
amount of stuff. We didn't want
Right.
anybody doubling back and being like, "Hey, I want that." Although that's
Yeah.
what happened with the figs apparently, because the figs got thrown out. So
Yeah, half the figs
anyway,
went in the garbage the minute we opened them up. We cut them in half to lay them open for color and stuff. I honestly didn't think anyone would eat them, but somebody came up to
I
me
didn't
and said,
either.
"Hey, my son told me that there's figs here," and we were looking all over on them. We could barely find them because they were already taken. But
Yeah.
and oh, the other thing I thought was great was because I had bought kiwis and they were absolutely delicious. And I kind of did the Charlie Brown, short hair cut on them.
Chevron is what it's
The
called.
chevron, is that
Chevron.
what it's called?
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh-huh.
this is non-chef talking. I cut those and they like flowers. We hadn't put any fresh, like, edible flowers. I don't believe in edible flowers between me and you because I don't think anyone's going to eat them, and it's
They
a
won't.
waste of money. And so
Hmm.
instead, I did buy greenery. I did stop at Trader Joe's to pick that up, and that actually wasn't the cheapest thing in the world either. But I did buy some, you know, um, what was it, eucalyptus type stuff, and just a bunch of flowers so that I could put in vases on a vase on the table. But to get back to the boxes, so when I bought the boxes, I bought them on Amazon, and I bought what was called a sheet cake size, but when it came, it was a half a sheet cake size, and I was
Mm-hmm.
actually expecting it to be bigger than that, which in the end I was going to send them back, and then I thought, no, because these are going to be way easier to get stored. And thank God we did that, because we had
Mm-hmm.
three massive coolers that we filled up with all of this stuff, with everything else that we had, because we had what we called filler, which was the nuts and all of that and what else, the vegetables and some of the stuff. We did make a vegetable tray. When you look at the video and the pictures that we'll lay in here, you'll get a close up of how we set this stuff up. But I thought, and you even said, the fact that we did the boxes saved us a lot of
Mm-hmm.
time the day of, because I tell you, if we hadn't done that, I don't know what it would have been tough.
Hey friends, it's Patty here. Before we get back into the episode, I've got something really tasty for you. If you're dreaming about starting or growing your home-based food or charcuterie business, we've put together a whole bundle of free resources just for you, including calculators, marketing guides, AI prompts, our free Facebook group, everything you need to get yourself up and running as fast as possible. Oh, and don't miss our free webinar training on how to launch your business the smart way. You can grab it all at grazingbiz.com/resources. That is grazingbiz.com/resources. Oh, and if you're loving the value we bring you each week, do me a huge favor. Make sure to follow the show, hit us up with a 5-star rating, and share this podcast with someone who needs a little nudge to start their own food business journey. Your thoughtful follow and ratings help move our little podcast up the ranks of podcast land and gives us even more incentive to keep providing you even more food business success tips, advice, and resources. Thanks so much. We appreciate you. Alrighty, let's dive back into the rest of the podcast.
Now, you have a better idea for in the future. If you do this again, you'd rather do something else.
Let me ask a question. I don't know because I was so busy. Now, I set most of the boxes up. I was the one who designed them, and then I was the one who put them on the table when the time came to it. Do we have any video of me doing that? I don't even know if that happened or not. Because what we did was we put paper inside the box, and then I
It was
just
butcher
opened
paper.
up the box. It was butcher paper. And then I opened up the box, and Patty had it set up to where there was a big gaping piece of the end piece of the paper. So you could just pull it out. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if that makes sense, but you could pull it out. And then we tucked that little extra paper underneath
Or you
so you
could cut
couldn't
it if
see
we had
it. Or you
scissors,
could put
which,
stuff. I was putting stuff on top of it either because it was just a filler paper anyway.
yeah.
But it was a very cool idea, and I've never done that before. I knew what she was talking about. I'd seen other people, and anybody who's been watching any kind of charcuterie online on TikTok, on Facebook, whatever, you do see people do that where they're sliding it out of a box to make a grazing table or whatever. Now, with that being said, I am used to big buffets and so where everything would go onto trays, and you knew that that tray was going to feed 25, 50 people, whatever it was, whether it was fruit, whether it was cheese, whether it was a mix of all of them. You knew how much it was going to serve. So therefore, you put everything on trays, and then you just put the tray on the table, and you take the plastic off, and you would put risers up and make everything at different
Which
tiers, as
we
we
did
would
a little
call
of
it.
that. Yeah.
We did a little bit of that, but with the boxes, we didn't. But anyways, I mean, there's many different forms that you can do this in. That was the first time I'd ever done that, and I did like the idea of it. Um,
The
it did
negative
make things
side,
way easier.
right. The negative side of that, just to clarify what I did, is I cut the butcher paper up, and the butcher paper was a little longer than the box, and by about 3 or 4 inches. And so I cut it to fit the width, and then the length was a little longer. So when we went to lay it on the table, we opened the one end of the box and we pulled the paper, because we kind of had a handle. We had a handle because that
Yeah.
was that paper, and you were able to pull it out and lay it on the table. Now, and Andrea, because I was getting dressed or doing something at the time you were doing this, so I was putting makeup on, because I'll tell you my getting dressed story here in a minute. So I ran back to get my hair done, and I was doing all myself. So what, I'm 65 years old. I can do my own damn hair. So I get back there, and Andrew's sliding the stuff out at an angle. And when I loved it, because it actually gave us some good depth and space to put more things in at the angle, because of the way you angled them, kind of like it was. I was visualizing going straight in, and then but it actually was better this way, because it kind of gave it depth, going however you laid things out inside the box was kind of more sideways. So then we had space to put other filler things in, so nobody knew this was laid out this way. They had no
Right.
clue that we had brought boxes out there, and we had so many people. We had a huge amount of feedback. I did, even just pictures I put on Facebook, just from people just seeing what they saw. They just couldn't believe it. And that we were able to put that together so fast, really, because it seemed like it was a lot of time, but it really wasn't, because we didn't start putting the food out until the wedding started at 4:30. So we couldn't actually put the cold stuff out. We started around 3:15, I would say, getting the actual cold stuff out. Now, we got there earlier. I was there at 1:30 getting the table set up, and just getting all the risers, some of the decorations that I had bought, and just getting things organized so that we could just get up when we were ready to just slip the food out onto the table. And I think that made a big difference. So because we just saved a ton of time by doing that. And if you think about the amount of time we put into it, I think between the two of us, it was probably a good eight hours. I spent about 4 hours doing stuff before you got, and then I had to leave. So Andrew was at my house working on stuff from when you got there. So the two of us were probably working together for about 3 or 4 hours, and then I had to leave. You got there at 1:30, and then I don't know how much you said you were working till about 9:30, but I don't know how much you stopped to eat and all that. But
I really
timing
didn't.
wise, with two of
I ate
us,
the pieces. I
oh
ate the
yeah,
end pieces.
we were pretty sausaged out by the time it was said and done. But
Right.
I think so, timing wise, and the reason I'm wanting to talk about all this, because when you're going to do something like this, you really have to determine whether or not it makes sense and it's something you want to do. We've talked about this in previous episodes, where you have to decide, is this something that you really want to do? Because let's face it, friends, this was a hell of a lot of work. You got a whole day that we had to spend, and then of course getting it set up, getting it over there, schlepping everything over, and then setting it up. Now, granted, you can leave now. It's not like you're sitting, if you weren't in the wedding like I was and Andrea attended it, that would be different. But the reality was, we were stressing out to get it set up in time, because you only have a little window of being able to put the food out. And then there's the how long is the food going to stay out situation, right? So we know 4 hours, really ideally for the meats and cheeses, things that are going to perish that way. Not so much concerned about the fruit and obviously crackers and things, but and the vegetable, like the crudités or whatever you call them. So there was that, and that was the other discussion you and I had about how long should it all stay out, and we had that whole situation. So let's chat about that, because I got communicated with by the caterer who was on site after, let me see, when was it? It was before we ate, I think it was. She was like, what are you going to do? Are you going to break all this down? And we still had a lot of food, and we knew that we were going to have a lot of food. She wanted us to get rid of it. And I'm like, I'm not throwing this out. So Andrew and I had a pre-discussion that we were going to combine what was left on one 8-foot table. Just so you know, we had one 8-foot table, which was 3.5 feet long, wide. And then I added on two 2-by-4-foot tables on the side to make it one big kind of square. And then we added 2 more of those on the end for like a little tea. So that we could put plates and things on there, and whatever their venue was going to, that's where that food ended up, right? But I guess she wanted us to get rid of it all. And so we were already had pre-planned, no, we weren't going to get rid of it all because we're going to let them keep eating on it. And she was freaking out that it was going to start going bad and she was going to be liable. And if people started getting sick, I said, listen, we started setting up at 3:30. This can stay out for 4 hours. So, I mean, by the time it all got out, so the wedding started at 4:30 and we were eating dinner. So let's fill them in on, first of all, the whole situation with that food that they brought out. Do you want to tell them?
Yeah. So
That
unbeknownst to
kind of
us
screwed with us a
until
little bit.
right. Unbeknownst to us until like the day before, we didn't know that there were actually some other hors d'oeuvres that were ordered and they were just put on trays. They had some shrimp cocktail. They were in these little cups with the flavorless, I will say they were flavorless cocktail sauce.
It
And then
was. What was that?
I don't know what it was, but anyways,
Like ketchup.
the and then
No, it
they and
wasn't
then
even
they
ketchup.
had uh mozzarella or caprese sticks. They were real tiny. They had bruschetta with the tomato, chopped tomatoes on top. And then they had a couple of other things with brie or not brie, but some kind of, I think it might have been blue cheese with pears or something. Anywho, they had a few different hors d'oeuvres, very sparsely put on these white trays. And again, we didn't know about this prior to even purchasing our stuff. So we didn't know that
Mm-hmm.
there was a whole nother thing of food going on, which it wasn't a ton, but it was enough to kind of throw off the groove of what we had going on. And you'll see them in the video that I took. I think that I tried not to take too much of it because I was annoyed with the whole thing, but they are in there. And so I made the mistake of putting them at the beginning. I should have put them more towards the end because I think people were digging into those first and then moving on to our stuff. And, it was just kind of a chaotic situation regarding that. And then, of course, the caterer was like, oh, I don't want to get in trouble. You know what, lady? This stuff is not on your agenda. It's on mine. I've got my own license. So
Yeah,
I don't
that's
need
what I told
you,
her.
you
Yeah.
know, I, you know. So, anyways, the point being, you need to have all of that information before, like we would have adjusted accordingly had we known in enough time, that was going to happen. Then all of a sudden it was like, where is my stuff going to go? The caterers, not hollering, she was kind of nice, but just, where are we going to put our stuff? And
Yeah.
I get it,
We
we're
left
all
them
trying to work
space.
together.
Yeah.
We
In
left them,
hindsight.
actually, I think they got more space than they should have, but they got it. And you'll see in the pictures that we made it nice. And
Yeah.
and they were responsible to fill their own stuff, which I don't know if they did or not. And then we provided the plates and everything, so it was fine. It's just when it comes down to that, this is information that we would have needed to know in order to adjust accordingly to how much we
Yeah.
purchased for
We would have.
the table.
I will say, and I was aware there was going to be something. I didn't know all what and how much. Anyway, that was a whole discussion that I don't need to get into with them. But the bottom line is, like Andrew said, I think the lesson here is making sure that you understand all what they're gonna be serving. And
Mhm.
so in the end, I will tell you just from our experience being there that the amount of food that was on the buffet, they were scooping and there wasn't enough that they, for whatever reason, they did not serve enough to each of the people that were there. And I think I'm not
You're
100%
talking about dinner. Go back.
dinner
We're
time,
talking about
right? Yeah, we're
dinner.
talking
Yeah,
about
they kind
dinner
of
now.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
kind of
and so
skimped people at dinner. So we thankfully, we did have all
yeah,
that stuff. And so we combined it all together. We got it out of the room because the caterer was throwing a fit. I think they really just wanted to clean up their mess so they could get out in a timely fashion. 100% understand that. So we moved, combined everything, got it on a couple of 8 foots or whatever the hell we did. And then we moved it out towards the dance floor and people dug in.
yeah.
There were a lot of people because they were hungry. This
In the end,
particular
yeah,
caterer just didn't provide enough actual dinner food for people to get through the hours and hours of stuff that we had going on. So it is what it is. Who knows what was booked and who was discussed. That's not
Right.
our problem, but it worked
Right.
out good for us because we could move everything out and regroup and kind of fix it, get rid of the stuff that didn't look good. There was some dried cheese and other things that, it was like, no, throw
Yeah.
that out. And then cleaned it up and
We
redid it. And then
actually
people were still eating it. So
throughout the
it was good.
evening, we stripped it down twice. So the first
Uh-huh.
time we stripped down to an 8-foot table, and we got a bunch of He-Man guys to come pick the table up because it was still pretty loaded and the decorations were still on it. So like, don't trip, you guys don't trip on anything. And so they moved it out, and then later on we stripped it again because at that point we did want to get the meats and stuff off the table. So we stripped it down one more time and left the sweets and the fruits and the and the celery and stuff. And I watched people eating it all night long up
Hmm.
until the minute we were leaving at 10 o'clock. So
Yeah.
I felt happy about that, and we were fortunate because we could do that. But if you again, that lesson to be learned is talk to the facility that you're at and find out all what's going to happen through the evening, because it may behoove you, if you're going to do something like this, to be able to keep the table up, because that way nothing's going to go to waste. That was one thing you and I adamantly said: we don't want to bring anything home. We did bring stuff home, and it was already not even touched in the cooler, so I didn't feel bad about that. Just so you guys know too, how did we get all this stuff over there? Well, between Andrew and I, she had a car, she had her van. We drove our motorhome over, and we had a lot of the stuff. We had tables and all that in there, and we stayed there in our motorhome in the lot next door, which got lucky to do that. And then I had my car too, so we had put coolers in there, but we were using the big Yeti coolers. I didn't realize Yeti coolers, they last for 100 years when you put stuff in it, but the walls are like 3 feet.
Yeah. The
I
sidewalls are
mean, the
really thick.
sidewalls are huge. So as big
Yeah.
and heavy as they are,
They're
they're
meant to
great.
they're meant to
Oh,
hold, hunting stuff. So they're
yay.
meant to put like a freaking
Yeah.
deer carcass in there.
Yeah.
And I've seen them firsthand.
Yeah.
So I know they
Yeah.
fit. It's crazy.
Well, so
Sometimes you'll
we were
see
able to get
when people have heads, they stick the heads in there. It's crazy.
good.
So we were able to get a
Good.
lot of stuff in those coolers. Yeah, it's kind of frightening
Well,
when
I
you
had
open
one
up
good
a
long one that was just an
Yeti and you're
old
like, ooh,
Coleman. Yeah, I had an
yeah.
old long one that was a Coleman, and then my kids are campers, so they had brought those. So with that came in handy. The other thing that came in handy was the soft-sided cheapy ones that we were able to stick the round trays into, because we did make trays, big round platters that we got at the dollar store, wherever, whatever you want to call the store these days, $1.75 store, that we used and to put out the vegetables and some fruits. And Andrea made a beautiful fruit salad that she cut and open a watermelon and put in, and that went over big. In fact, when we were leaving, my kids there was a little left in one of the coolers, and they were just eating it up like crazy out in the
No,
parking lot
well,
when they're getting out
that's
there.
good. That's
So that
somebody
worked
ate
out
it.
good. But is this is all just a lesson. And I think the point about it all is that, like Andrew said, there you won't really know, because I see a lot of people posting, I don't know how much to buy, how much should I sell it for, and blah blah blah. And in hindsight, at 170 people, we determined it should sell for around double that. So $340,000, $3,400. This seriously could have easily sold for that if we had actually sold it. Spent a
Yeah,
thousand
it would have
dollars
been
on it.
about $20 at least per person, maybe even more,
Yeah.
because of just the way things were. But the reality is, you won't know until you know. I mean, I can give you as much guidance as I can, but it really takes you to learn your customers. And
Your
I
area too,
so
like we were just talking
right.
about. Maybe not everybody likes figs.
Right.
Uh,
And it's
so
hot here. That particular day was hot.
yeah,
So, the whole salad and the crudité thing went over well because of that. Cheese is not always the most, popular thing on a 90-degree day. But it still went over well. I mean, it was indoors.
Inside.
So, you just never know. You just got to keep all these little variables that you learn as you move forward and you start to do your business more and more. You're going to make mistakes and it's going to suck because you'll be like, damn, I could have saved myself $50 or
Yeah.
$100, or in our case, probably a couple $100,
Right.
knowing that there are certain things that can be changed and you just won't know. You won't
Yeah.
know, unless you're going to go to and do full blown catering. It's just going to be the grazing table concept is a difficult, open ended concept. It's very hard to control. It's very hard to get those amounts right. And hopefully everybody will figure it out. I mean,
Mhm.
always know that you're either never going to have enough or you're not going to have, or you're going to have too much. It
You
just,
have too
you
much.
never seem to hit it on the mark, and that's
Right.
okay. As long as you don't lose money,
Right.
as long as you don't lose money, it's okay.
Yeah. I
So,
think
because you
we
don't
could
want to
have.
cheat people.
No, you don't want to do that. And I think we could have been okay just with the idea of, okay, we're going to leave. Really, in the original discussion was just to have enough food there for the 1 hour of cocktail. But in the end, it ended up being more than an hour. And I don't even think we started eating dinner. I don't even know what time it was, to be honest with you.
It
And
was,
it's
it
just,
was, they had, and see, that's another whole discussion that we could have had, was that if I had known that the schedule was going to be, they had this weird long schedule of things that were happening in between. So, yeah, by the time they got married to the time that we actually sat down to eat, it was not an hour, it was
no.
several hours. And people were starving, and then the meal itself was not the best. So it was just a weird,
Yeah,
I'm not saying it what didn't taste good. It just there wasn't a lot of
there
it.
wasn't a lot of it
So
there.
it
Yeah.
was a weird dynamic. If I had known a lot of those things, it would have changed the way we did things. Honestly, I started thinking we could have done a smaller table and then brought more stuff out. But we
Oh,
were
yeah.
part of the party.
Yeah.
We were part of the party, so it was hard for us to do. But that's another concept that you could have done if it was a prolonged thing. So we could have put out less and then put out more later that would have been fresher with a smaller table. If I had known that we were going to go a good
Hours on
two
end. Yeah.
hours or
Yeah. But
so,
right.
I would have done it that way. And I would have put myself in there and you're the mother of the groom, so you can't do that. But I could have. And so in retrospect, it is what it is. But
Yeah.
things to
Everybody.
learn. Everybody just remember you've got to do these kind of events and challenge yourself and learn from them because they're just massive. I mean, I've been doing this for 30 years and I still don't get it right. And I wish that's the best advice I can give you is and I know I keep saying this on every podcast, get out there and do it because you will never learn
Yeah.
and you're always going to be nervous and you're always going to be scared, but be confident in what you're providing and all will be well.
Right. Well, and like I said, I was at Costco and I was telling Andrew I seem to be doing more eyeballing of the amount of food I'm purchasing than actually looking at the labels from my own experience is what I said to her because I have already done, the not the grazing table necessarily, but the carts we've done a few times and just my experience now realizing that I feel like most of us are overkilling it and
Hmm.
because we're worried we're going to run out and I grew up in a large family we grew up in a large family and we were always fighting like okay mom would put all the bacon down on Sunday and say each of you start with 2 pieces. We had 5 kids so everybody start with 2 pieces and then we'll see what's left. And so we were always like, oh, there's never enough, right? I always felt that way. And I think I'm still that way when I have company. I always cook too much. I always do.
Hmm.
And I'm trying to strip it back in my lifetime now with just my husband and I still cook too much with the two of us. And now I'm getting better about it because he's not eating as much and I shouldn't be eating as much. But so I think if you lean toward this, oh, I'm gonna make sure that I have too much. I think you're gonna have way too much. So I think
Hmm.
the mentality should be more have less, to be honest with you, than you think. But I honestly think that. Get
It's
less
better
than
to
what you
run
think.
out. It's
Yeah.
better to run out than throw out the food.
Yeah,
But you
as
don't want
long
to
as
run out too quick. So again,
no.
there's this time frame that needs to be considered that we didn't know about. And so that
Right.
would have changed the whole the whole dynamic would have changed if I had known about a lot of that. So it is what it
It's okay.
is.
You know what?
Yeah,
Everything turned out great, and
it did.
I gave away what I had to people I love, and so I don't feel bad about anything that felt like it was going to waste. And it was a
Hmm.
wonderful wedding, and we'll
Yeah.
post some pictures of that. If
And
you're
it was
not in our,
fun.
it was
Yeah.
very fun. If you go, and if you're not in our group yet, make sure that you've joined our Charcuterie and Cottage Biz Success group on Facebook. And because I've posted some pictures, we posted some pictures in there, but also, reach out if you want some more tips or advice on what we're doing. I mean, we're living it along with many of you right now. And Andrew's got some events coming up, some more market event next week, and we've been talking about that whole thing. And now the weather's starting to get warm, so we have to kind of start planning for the hot weather outside again.
Hmm.
So gosh, I can't.
Yeah.
uh
I got an outdoor market. I sell stuff at craft fairs, and Patty's going to join me on this one. I'll be down at the Tempe Art Festival in the emerging artist section, and it
Yay.
is supposed to be 93 and 94, which is ridiculous.
Right.
We were in the 90s, and that was February, which was last weekend. So for
So
us
the
to be
things,
hitting 90 in March is just not
right.
something. We're in the upside down, is what I like to call it. So I
Yeah.
went and purchased a evaporative cooler for the tent this
Yeah.
weekend
I can't wait
for
to see
this
how that
weekend. So,
moves. That'll be good.
so
Well,
it's better than
so
nothing.
anyway, you heard the good, the bad, and the ugly, but the
Yeah.
reality is it all ended up well. And if we had charged for it, we would have made money because I spent $1,000, and I'm pretty sure we could have easily charged at least $3,000 for this event. What we
Hmm.
did, if we had done it that way, and it would have been $20 a head. I mean, 20
Hmm.
easily plus setup time if you want to charge for that. So
Yeah.
the lessons you learn along the way, and again, you would want to make sure you have a contract for how long you're supposed to be there. Just make sure that you cover that as far as the food goes, and if you and have the discussion with the venue. What happens after that? Do you want to keep it up? Because if so, we'll leave it up. If not, we can bag it all up and you can take it all home. And so that you're not taking it home. The worst part about it all is cleaning up and taking it all back and having to deal with
Hmm.
it. And after, especially for somebody who's been working all day, you don't want to have to come home and do all that, the cleanup and cleaning everything else up. If you're setting things up that are not disposable and you're taking it back with you, you've got to have agreements with the facility. You're going to be getting these items. I need to make sure you get them back. Make sure you have a deposit. If you're going to do something like that, if you can do it so that it can all just be chucked away, you can just set it up and go and not worry about it. Let them deal with it. So yeah, all of those things have to be discussed if you're going to be doing events like this. And I don't think it's a bad thing if it's something that you want to do. You just have to understand there's work involved, and then add up the amount of hours and make sure that you're getting paid for what you're worth.
Yeah, just
Because
make
there's
sure
one,
you're having fun. Most people are doing this now because they want to have a fun and exciting business, and just make sure that you're doing it for all the right reasons. So,
Mhm,
and don't lose money in the process. That's my
exactly.
advice. So,
Yep.
anyway, all
All
right.
right, that's it for today, folks. You got an earful from us, but anyway, we're back, and we look forward to keeping on. Thanks, sister.
Yeah,
We
you're
I'm gonna help.
welcome.
We're gonna hang up now. I'm gonna work on our website with her. So you guys want some
Oh, that's
website
right.
help?
Okay.
We're building websites like we have been for the last year and a half. So if you want some help
Trying
with your
to
websites, we'll help
Yeah,
with
we're
any
trying
kind of
to
food.
working on different products, so it doesn't all have to be food. It can also just be,
Hmm.
different crafts and things like that. So we're rolling into crafts and cottage and charcuterie and the whole nine
Yeah,
yards. Are trying to help everybody make as much money and have as much fun as they can working from home, whether it's a side hustle or not.
yeah.
So
Yep, I've got. I just bought. So for those of you who'd heard, I'm into the hand knitting thing. So I got. Just had 24 skeins of fat yarn, chunky yarn delivered, and I'm going to start making some cat houses, cat
cool.
things, and a blanket. So anyway, all right, everyone. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks for joining us. Make sure you like, share, and tell the world about us. We'd love to have you share us with the world. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.